I think with a true story, you want to, because it is it's such a incredible thing that these men did. You want to do justice to that feat, and also you want to pay tribute to the men, and hopefully capture something of who they were. And, on the page, Bernie, certainly I got a flavor of what, or a sense of who this man was. And then there's this really great audio recording of him telling the story again many years later of what happened on that night. And just listening to his cadence and how he responded to the gentleman asking the questions. Again, as I said, you could tell that he told this story many times, and I had a feeling from listening to it that he was just kind of over it. He'd done it, and he didn't want to talk about it much anymore. And talking with people who knew him, and that was definitely a great part of who Bernie was. Bernie was a quiet guy. From what I can tell, he took his job very seriously, was very good at what he did, and really didn't want to glorify it any more than that. So I played Bernie Weber, who's one of the four that went out and saved these 32 men off of the tanker Pendleton in 1952, February 18th. And Bernie, in our film, Bernie is he's a sweet man. He's a sweet, gentle person. I think a person who hasn't really found his voice quite yet, and grew up in a family of really very strong men that went to war and went to battle, and got their badges that way. And I think Bernie's a man who feels incredibly kind of feeling surrounded by all of this heroism, and having not gone to war, he feels a sense of maybe shame, or that he should have been there, and that the accolades and the attention went elsewhere in his family to his older brothers. In the beginning of the film, he meets this beautiful woman, Miriam Pennington. It's the first time they've met. They've met in this kind of very bizarre way. Miriam worked at the phone exchange and heard his voice when Bernie, on attempting to go on another date with his friend Gus, they got waylaid, and their car broke down, and he had to call these ladies to tell them that they weren't coming to the date. And Miriam heard his voice and then called him up, and they started talking. They started this relationship over the phone, which is finally brings us to this night when we first meet the two of them. It's the first time they're meeting, and Bernie's incredibly nervous and is really in love already with Miriam, and I think basically knows that this is the one. And it's just, I don't know, it's this beautifully produced scene in the sense. What I mean by that is that it's just the diner is almost like an Edward Hopper painting. And the first time we see Miriam, she almost looks like a woman out of a Vermeer painting. It's so beautifully lit, and she's so luscious and angelic, and it's a film from another time. It almost feels like a film that would have been or should have been made in the 50s at one of the studios. Craig Gillespie's directing, and Craig is, I think, having come from the world of commercials, for the budget that we have, for the tight schedule that we have, strictly technically speaking, is a great fit, because he knows how to get stuff done for as cheaply as possible in the quickest amount of time, which studios love. So he has an incredible facility to not be overwhelmed by what could appear to be very daunting, which is working in water, which is notoriously difficult, working with these just humongous sets, And what I've really appreciated about Craig, because I don't, ultimately that's not my concern. Really, my concern is how his interaction with the actors and the moments and the scenes and the direction of the characters. He gives the actors great latitude to explore and sometimes directors can take the responsibility and become dictatorial and kind of order people around. But Craig is, he leaves the boundaries kind of wide open to figure out a moment, or that maybe what's on the page can be taken a different way, or and he really, in terms of what I did, really pushed me to try to figure out a character that I'd never really played before, and was very kind of frightening to take on this innocent man, and I appreciate him kind of pushing me and challenging me to do that, however it's received. They're putting their lives on the line for us, and anyone who does that, whether it be a police officer or a fireman or a coastie or a Coast Guard guardsman or someone in the Army or whatever. I mean, it's not something I'm doing, and that takes an incredible amount of courage, strength,